Hi! I finally finished A Feast for Crows. Oh my god, it only took me like 3 months to finish reading this book. There will be spoilers, just so you know. So this book is definitely the slowest of, I think, all of the books so far. Some people would argue that the fifth book is even worse. At least the fifth book has more characters in it that I like. This one, it's not a bad book, but there aren't that many characters in here that I care about. They're sort of in here as to show some of the events that are going on. But really the main character I care about is Arya, and she only has literally three chapters in this book. That's it. And she has the most interesting storyline in this book. Samuel is actually pretty interesting, but again, I think he only has 3 or 4 chapters in here as well, because he's really the only connection you have to the wall, because they don't go over any of that until the fifth book. So basically this does pick up right from the end of the third book with, Tywin Lannister's death, and they're searching for Tyrion because he's escaped, and Arya has gone to Braavos. And so it takes place right after the events of that. And there are a lot of interesting things that are happening, because you actually get point of view chapters with Cersei. And those, I think, are the majority of the chapters in this book are from either Cersei or Jaime. And it's really interesting because Cersei and Jaime are not getting along anymore, because I think Cersei keeps blaming Jaime for the death of their father, and just, getting his hand cut off, because of course that was his fault, and just because she wants to be evil. And so she doesn't get redeemed at all in her chapters. She's just an evil, selfish person. You hate her, but you have to have her point of view chapters, because, well, she's the only person really in King's Landing. Jaime's in King's Landing for a little bit, but he mostly goes off to he's leading an army to basically end the siege at Riverrun, as Brynden Tully, the Blackfish, has, taken over he's trying to keep Riverrun, but it's pretty much futile at this point, because Riverrun is the last basically stronghold in the South for any of the supporters of Robb Stark. I mean, Robb Stark is dead. I mean, you can tell, especially in this book, that support for him is very fleeting at best. It's just a hope, but he's dead, and there's no successor. You find out that Jane Westerling's mother is allied still with the Lannisters, and has made sure that her daughter has not conceived, given her, I think, like the moon tea or whatever. And, great job, Robb. You just picked a winner right there in their family. I feel like that was always doomed from the beginning. As soon as he decided to marry some random person. So bad. Why? But anyway. And then, okay, we also get a lot of the Iron Islands information, at least at the very beginning of the book. And then there's like 1 or 2 chapters later in the book, and then pretty much nothing, because there's a little bit more going on in the fifth book. But I have to say, I hate all of the Iron Island stuff. I could care less what's going on with them. I don't find them to be very interesting at all. I find it very annoying. And this whole King's Moot, Queen's Moot thing, where they're trying to decide the new king, is pretty pointless. And it's rather annoying. I feel like a lot of those events could have been summarized in one chapter, like a point of view chapter. Have Asha do a chapter going over the events of it, or Victarion, or one of them, but don't have, several different chapters with several of the different Iron Island characters, because nobody cares. People do. Apparently some people do like the Iron Island chapters. I'm not one of them. I don't like them. I think they're lame and stupid and pointless at this point. They're still pointless. Yeah, they do kind of affect some stuff, but at this point, they're still not really affecting too much. I think at least Victarion is going to have a bit bigger role in the 6th book, because I think they were supposed to get to Slaver's Bay by the end of the 5th book, but the 5th book was already too long, so they didn't do that. So I think eventually they'll have a bigger role, but I feel like they could have spent a lot less time on it. And let's see, and you also have Brienne, and she is still searching for Sansa and Arya, mostly Sansa because they assume that Arya is either dead or I think they're sending Jane Poole to be Arya Stark or to marry the bastard of Bolton. And so she's searching for Sansa, and you know how futile it is because you know where she is. She's in the Vale. And so Brienne kind of goes on this whole circular sort of pointless adventure. But she does eventually get captured by Lady Stoneheart, who is Catelyn Stark, but like she was dead for 3 days before Beric Dondarrion sort of gave his life force to her. So Beric Dondarrion died, and now you have Lady Stoneheart, and she's not as much of a leader of the bandits as she's just sort of this cruel other being who the outlaws follow, but there's not as much order. She's in it for just pure like revenge and justice. Anybody who was against the Starks or, you know, anything like that, they're dead. And they're killing off Lannisters and the Freys and everybody like flies. If they can find you and you're even moderately associated with them, you're gonna die. So Brienne gets captured by them, and at the very end, she's about to get hung, but it says she says a word, and then it ends, and you don't know what happens. Of course, Bran does come back in the 5th book, but we still don't know exactly what's going on with that. I'll go over that more in the 5th book when I finish that. So yeah, Brienne's story, again, kind of interesting, but kind of pointless. Again, it's sort of more of the futility of it. I think what it does is it shows some of the events that have been going on in the land and how it's been affected. So that might be the point of the Brienne chapters, and then eventually getting Brienne to Lady Stoneheart. Again, I feel like a lot of this book was pointless meandering just to show you the scene. There was a lot more setup and world building in this of the events after the war. Like, the war is mostly done at this point. You do still have Stannis at the Wall, and the Iron Islanders are creating their fracas and being annoying. But at this point, Cersei's like, whatever, we don't really care. And so, but for the most part, I mean, the major part of the war they think is done, and a lot of the outlaws or other people are creating havoc in the land, and nobody seems to care about the common folk. So then, okay, I want to talk about Arya, because Arya's chapters are singularly the best chapters in this book, and there's 3 of them, and I'm really sad about that. So Arya gets to Braavos because she gave the ship at Salt Pans the iron coin, you know, Father Morghulis and all that fun stuff, and they take her to the House of Black and White, I think it is. I think that's the name of it, where the Faceless Men basically train. And so she passes their first test. Like, she's not afraid of, she you know, she is fearless, but, you know, she still has a lot to learn. And so the next chapter has her learning a bunch of different things. And I think she actually, what is it? Well, she's learning from the fish merchant, learning like Braavosi and things like that. I think actually in the previous chapter, I think that's in the 3rd chapter, because I think in the 2nd chapter she's still learning at the House of Black and White, because she has to get rid of all of her worldly possessions, basically give up everything, but she manages to throw everything in the river except for Needle. Needle, she picks up stones in I think the walkway up to the House of Black and White, and she buries it, and she, you know, remembers where it's at, and, you know, just in case, because Needle is her last connection. You know, Jon Snow gave that to her, and it's her last connection as a Stark, and she refuses to give it up. But she's hiding it and pretending that she's giving it up, but the kindly man and his servant, they're, you know, they know that she's not completely given up her identity, but they're willing to sort of overlook it and continue her training because she's still not Faceless Man. She's just still training. So then they sent her to a fish merchant to learn the Ravosi and to learn different things about the city, because every time she returns to them, every month she has to go back for 3 days to serve the house, and she has to tell them 3 new things that she learned that she didn't know before, and that she tells them, and they get new information, basically to make sure that she is learning something and she's being observant. And what happens is, in one of the chapters with Samwell, they're also in Braavos on their way to Old Town. And you actually see Arya actually interacts with Sam and calls herself Cat, and she's selling like fish and mussels and things like that. And she tells him where his brother Darian is, that he's over at a brothel, doing things he really shouldn't be doing as a sworn brother of the Night's Watch. And Sam finds Darian, and Darian basically says, I'm not going to be a brother of the Night's Watch. I make money here as a singer, and I can actually, have sex with women and enjoy my life. So you guys, heck with you guys. I don't care. I don't care about you guys anymore. Sam gets really pissed, and, they eventually find passage to Old Town Elseways. But the last chapter with Arya is when she's doing all the fish selling and things like that. She manages to find Darian again, and it's sort of vague as to what happens when she goes back. And the last thing she says that she learned that was new to the kindly man and to the other girl are that there was a sworn brother of the Night's Watch who deserted. His name was Darian, and he was killed by Arya Stark. And so then she's surprised because the kindly man doesn't really react. He just tells his servant girl, go make her some milk. And she drinks this milk, and she wakes up the next morning, and she's blind! And then it ends there. There's no more chapters. And there's still like 200 more pages left in the book, and you're thinking, but I want to know, and you don't get anything. It's terrible, but Arya's still awesome, and, she has a lot of chapters, a lot more chapters in the 5th book, I do believe. And so Arya's awesome, but everyone else, it just takes so long. I think Arya's chapters are the only ones that I really, really were interested in. She's awesome and amazing, and when she killed Darian, I was just like, yes! Because he's a deserter, and he's a dick, and he needs to die. And that was awesome. I did like that there weren't any Bran chapters in here, because I don't like Bran. So there were some chapters in here that were omitted, some omitted chapters that were fine. Like, I don't care about Bran, or I don't remember who else. A couple other people I don't care about. But for the most part, this is a book that really apparently should be read alongside the 5th book. I guess there's a guide that will show you how to read the 4th and the 5th book concurrently up until the point where they all merge together in the 5th book. And maybe at some point I'll have to try that, because I feel like it'd be a better reading experience. But now in the 5th book, you get a lot more characters you do like, plus Bran, who you don't care about. But yeah, it's just, I don't know. It takes a long time because I'm not as interested in it. So a lot of the book is Cersei plotting basically how to screw everybody over except herself, and, make sure that she's the best, and to keep Tommen from really screwing up anything, because Tommen is being influenced a lot by Margaery, and Cersei doesn't like that. She hates Margaery. Margaery's the new queen. She's younger and prettier, and everybody loves Margaery. And Cersei knows that Margaery's a real threat. So a lot of what she's planning to do involves Margaery. So she plans to get someone, one of the Kettle Blacks, not the one that's part of the Kingsguard, but his brother, to seduce Margaery and sleep with her so that he can confess. And since Cersei pretty much knows there's no way Margaery's a virgin, I mean, she can't be at this point, and if she can catch her in that, then Margaery can be maybe not executed, but at least stripped of her rank and everything, because she doesn't want Margaery there. And she hates the Tyrells. They're trying to worm their way in, and so she plans on having Osney do this and a bunch of other people. And, well, because Osney, you know, he really likes Cersei and he wants to get in her pants, he says, all right, but I'm going to sleep with you first. And so he does. And then eventually he goes and he confesses his crimes to the new High Septon, who's a very different High Septon. This High Septon does not like wealth or anything. He wants justice, you know, and he wants to reinstate the like religious order of like religious army. I don't remember what the name of it is, but you know, an army from the church, which had been previously banned for several hundred years because it had caused some problems. But Cersei needed something from the High Septon, and so she agreed, like, okay, fine, you guys can do this again. Well, so Osney goes to the High Septon and confesses his sins. And then Cersei goes, because Marjorie's been basically imprisoned along with her cousins who have been deemed, you know, they've sinned, they're not virgins, they, you know, obviously, you know, they've committed crimes. Well, Cersei goes and she's thinking, ooh, yay, haha, my plan is working great. And then the High Septon imprisons her because Osney also confesses to having slept with Cersei, which means that she is also committed crime. And yeah, well, she's also committed a lot of other things that Osney confessed to, you know, having people murdered and plotting different things. So, the very end of the book, we see Cersei, who we used to be all high and mighty about her plans, and she is imprisoned, and she's, you know, just in a terrible place, and she sends a letter to Jaime basically asking him, come and be my champion, because only a member of the Kingsguard can champion a queen. And so Marjorie's also in that big problem because there aren't very many people to choose from. Loras has been severely, direly injured, gravely injured. They think he's going to die. And some of the others are not available, and it basically gives her one choice, which is Boros Blount, and they've engineered it so that, you know, he could be defeated by whoever else. Well, you know, Cersei needs Jaime there to be her champion, and yeah, just needs him there. She's like, I love you, I love you, I love you, please come. And Jaime gets this letter, and he's like super pissed at her, and he basically knows that she is completely terrible, and he burns the letter. He's not going to go help her, and I think that's hilarious. Oh my gosh. Cersei does get some of her comeuppance, I know, in the next book. Not as much as she should, but she at least gets some. And I think that, I don't remember, I'll have to go over that when I read the 5th book, because I've only actually read the 5th book once. And this is actually only the second time I've read this, because the other 3 books were, I mean, I've read those a couple times because they're very good, but this is only the second time I've read this one, and it'll be the second time I've read A Dance with Dragons. So I don't really remember all the specifics, but yeah, I'll have to go over that when I reread it. So yeah, so A Feast for Crows, I mean, at this point, if you're watching the show, this definitely gives you a lot more insight into sort of the different plans that are going on. The problem is with the show is that they're doing a lot of different things that probably aren't in here, because a lot of this is exposition, especially just, you know, in the minds of the different characters. So it's not going to be as detailed, and this is more for if you've been reading the books, you need to read this, because you can't, after the 3rd book, you really can't just decide to watch the show instead of reading the books, or watch the show in place of reading some of the books. It doesn't work like that. So you'd have to read this one. It takes a while, but like I said, if you can find a guide where you can read this one and the 5th one at the same time, I would definitely do that, because it'll make for a better reading experience. You actually see Jon's chapters and Daenerys and Tyrion and a bunch of other people. That'd be better. I mean, I certainly don't think it's a bad book. I just think that it's more expositional than any of the others. There's not as much action in it as there could be. So yeah, I finally finished the sucker. So now I'm going to be reading A Dance with Dragons. Yay. I'm only a couple chapters into it. I'm about 40 pages into it. Hopefully, though, this won't take me 3 months to read. Hopefully, I'll be done with this next month. So yeah, I'll talk to you guys later. Yeah, talk to you later. Bye.